attitude is everything. That's not just a catchy phrase, it's a principle that has shaped countless lives, careers, and relationships. Jeff Keller's book, Attitude is Everything, takes that simple truth and turns it into a practical roadmap for change. The idea is straightforward. Your thoughts, words, and actions form a pattern that either opens doors or closes them. Adjust the pattern, your attitude, and your world changes. This book is not a lecture. It's a handbook for transformation. It's about how to reclaim the steering wheel of your life, stop blaming circumstances, and begin choosing responses that move you forward. To begin, we need to understand what attitude really is. Attitude is not the same as personality. Personality is the static package you're born with. Attitude is the lens you choose to look through. Two people can face the same storm and come away with different harvests. One sees disaster, the other sees opportunity. Attitude is that decision. It's the mental posture you carry into each situation. And the good news is, it's under your control. Consider the idea of the window to the world. Your attitude acts like a window frame. It colors what you notice and what you ignore. If you look through a dirty frame, the painting outside will appear dim and dark. Clean the frame, and suddenly, the same scene is vibrant. That's the metaphor Keller uses to show how a small shift in internal lens creates a massive shift in external experience. History gives us powerful examples. Think of Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the unspeakable horrors of a concentration camp and wrote about the last human freedom, the freedom to choose one's attitude. Despite everything taken from him, Frankl realized he could decide how to interpret suffering. That choice gave him meaning, and meaning sustains you where mere optimism cannot. But attitude isn't mystical, it's practical. It begins in thought. What you repeatedly think about becomes your reality. If you dwell on scarcity, you'll constrict. If you dwell on possibility, you'll expand. Your daily internal monologue of "I can't" or "I'll try" funnels your energy into doubt. Your inner language matters. That's why Keller emphasizes the 4 simple steps that form the chain from thought to reality. Think it, say it, do it, and get it. Thoughts turn into words. Words turn into beliefs. Beliefs direct actions. Actions produce results. Change any link in that chain, and you change the end state. Replace "I might" with "I will," and you change not only the sentence, but the trajectory. One of the first habits Keller asks you to adopt is the discipline of positive language. He doesn't mean sugarcoating reality or pretending hardships don't exist. He means deliberately choosing words that empower. Language shapes thought as much as thought shapes language. When you label your day tough repeatedly, you invite fatigue. When you label it challenging and solvable, you invite focused energy. A short story Keller uses, and one you'll repeat often in the book, is about the power of signature and self-image. Imagine a man named Robert, a candidate for a judge's seat, who felt unsure about his place in the world. His friend suggested a small but radical move. Sign his name as Robert T. Jones, Judge, on notes and documents he kept where he would see them daily. That tiny act of identity rehearsal shifted his internal map. It made the possibility real. He began to behave more like a judge, campaigning more confidently, preparing more thoroughly, and ultimately, identity and action converged. What seems like a small ritual can cascade into major change. Keller illustrates how the mind is a projector. It runs the movie you feed it. If you feed it images of success, your behavior follows. Athletes visualize their perfect performance before they step onto the field. Musicians imagine the precise phrasing of a piece before a concert. Visualization is not wishful thinking, it's rehearsal. By rehearsing success mentally, you prepare neural pathways that make success physically easier. One of the book's anchor lessons is commitment. Commitments are more than promises, they create leverage. A person who commits doesn't wait for perfect conditions, they act in spite of them. Keller tells the story of an entrepreneur who kept calling a corporate partner for years, despite rejection, persistence that finally opened the door. Commitment makes you visible to opportunity because it signals seriousness. People and systems respond to persistence. It's not drama. It's constant, boring, everyday insistence that shapes outcomes. Language and commitment are starting points. The next step is action. Keller insists that attitude without behavior is merely fantasy. Words must be matched by deeds. He writes about doing the next right thing consistently, a philosophy of forward momentum. Momentum is what tips the scales. One small action begets another. The first move breaks inertia, and that's half the battle. One practical exercise Keller recommends is the habit of goal clarity. Not vague someday goals, but specific, picture-rich objectives. If you want to be healthy, describe exactly what healthy looks like, what you eat, how you move, how you sleep. If you want a new career, imagine the daily tasks, the office environment, the conversations with colleagues. The clearer the image, the clearer the map your brain will use to navigate there. He also warns against the trap of playing small. Many people adopt safety as a way of life. The risk-averse favor comfort, but comfort yields stagnation because growth requires stretch. The book calls for stretching exercises, small, consistent acts of courage. Make one call you've been avoiding. Say yes to one opportunity that scares you. Each stretch expands your comfort zone just a little, and over time, this expansion compounds. Attitude also shapes how you handle criticism, failure, and rejection. Keller reframes failure as feedback. It's data, a signal that tells you what to tweak. When you treat rejection as an instruction rather than a verdict, you turn loss into a launching pad. This mindset removes the personal sting and replaces it with purposeful iteration. Think of inventors who experience multiple prototypes before finding a marketable product. They learn to welcome corrective data. Another critical lesson is the impact of the company you keep. Keller urges you to choose friends and mentors who model the attitudes you want. Surroundings matter. Toxic relationships sap energy and normalize scarcity thinking. Positive people reflect and amplify hope. They become the cultural scaffolding that supports new identities. This is why mentors matter. They embody the result and thus compress the learning curve. The book is full of practical rituals. For instance, start your day with a positive declaration. Say out loud, "Today I will be optimistic and productive." It sounds simple because it is, but spoken words engage your physiology. Your tone, your posture, your breath change. That physical change sends feedback to your brain that you mean business. It's a small, repeatable ritual that shapes your day. Keller also speaks to how you respond to setbacks emotionally. Emotions are not enemies, but signals. When anger, fear, or sadness surfaces, note it, name it, then choose how to act. Don't act impulsively from reactive states. Pause, reframe, ask yourself a productive question. What's the lesson here? What next step moves me forward? This reflective switch converts raw emotion into strategic fuel. Let's pause and examine one of the book's practical stories that ties many of these points together. A woman, midlife and fearful of change, was stuck in a steady but uninspiring job. She had always dreamed of painting. The fear of rejection kept her in safe employment. One day she committed publicly, posted a bold statement to friends that she would hold a gallery showing in 1 year. That small commitment created external pressure and introduced accountability into her private dream. She started painting an hour a day, attended classes, and gradually built a body of work. The public commitment forced consistent action, and in less than a year she had a show. Her attitude changed from "I wish" to "I will," and everything else followed. That story demonstrates a few key truths. First, public commitment converts private desire into public obligation. Second, small daily acts create a body of work. Third, the surrounding community, friends, artists, gallery owners, provided the social scaffolding and feedback necessary for growth. Keller is insistent about language. He offers specific word choices to avoid and powerful phrases to adopt. Replace "I can't" with "I choose not to right now." That tiny rewording restores agency. You're not powerless. You have reasons. Replace "I'll try" with "I will." "I'll try" is a soft hedging that excuses half-hearted effort. "I will" commits you to action. Beyond phrases, Keller invites you to craft a personal credo, a short, energizing statement that encapsulates the person you intend to become. Read it each morning. Post it where you can see it. The credo functions like a mission statement. It aligns daily micro-decisions with long-term vision. Attitude also determines how you see opportunity. People with optimistic lenses find opportunities where others see only obstacles. This doesn't mean naive positivity. It means a disciplined scanning for leverage. Where most see barriers, the optimistic see leverage points, an unmet need, a small inefficiency, a skill gap you can fill. The optimistic person asks different questions. How can I make this work? Rather than, why me? Keller gives practical guidance for shifting perception. Slow down your automatic reactions. When a negative thought arises, this is too hard. Instead of allowing it to spiral, interrupt it with a question. What would I do if this were easy? That reframing pushes your brain to consider pathways rather than walls. The author also addresses the subject of gratitude. Gratitude is not a feel-good add-on. It's a strategic lever. When you intentionally note what's working, you rewire focus from scarcity to abundance. This mental pivot creates psychological momentum. Journal 3 positive things each day. This practice trains your brain to notice assets you otherwise would ignore. Over time, noticing becomes a habit and your baseline emotional set point rises. Another tool Keller champions is the idea of quick wins. These are small, visible accomplishments early in a project that create psychological momentum. Want to clean your house? Start with one drawer. Want to start a business? Draft the homepage headline. Quick wins produce dopamine and confidence. They make the larger tasks feel feasible. Keller's approach is fundamentally practical. He rarely indulges in platitudes without tools to act. For example, he offers a technique for dealing with negative people. Instead of arguing, ask a neutralizing question, like what's positive about this? That doesn't deny reality, but forces the other person into constructive reframe and keeps your own state intact. If the person remains toxic, set a boundary, limit time, change the subject, or remove yourself. Your attitude is too valuable to be borrowed or drained. What about fear of failure? Keller reframes it as a natural part of the learning curve. The fastest way to reduce fear is to take small, consecutive actions. Each small success disconfirms the fear narrative. Consider the 2-minute rule. Start with tiny steps and escalate. Micro-action dissolves dread because you accumulate evidence of competence. Action begets courage. There's a powerful anecdote Keller uses about a man named Jerry who wanted to sell animation art. He was rejected repeatedly by Disney. Rather than give up, he persisted, sometimes annoying the corporation with calls and proposals. His persistence, bordering on obsessive, eventually led to a contract. That's the difference between a passing idea and a realized dream. Commitment and consistent action in the face of rejection. At this point, we must consider the role of habits. Attitude without structure can fade. Habits operationalize attitude. They automate the small actions that embody your chosen identity. If you want to be healthy, create nutrition and movement habits. If you want to be productive, establish time blocking and shut down rituals. Habits remove decision fatigue. They make consistent action inevitable. One of Keller's key principles is to align daily rituals with long-term goals. He calls this architecting your life. Design a morning routine that primes your highest self, hydration, movement, intentional reading, and a quick review of your goals. A deliberate morning stacks the odds toward excellence because the first hours often determine the tone for the day. Another practical recommendation is to track progress publicly. Don't simply keep your wins in private. Share them. Public records invite social reinforcement, and external validation can act as fuel. When you share small wins, you build community support and increase your accountability. This doesn't mean boasting, it means creating a support system. Keller also digs into the idea of emotional labor. A positive attitude sometimes requires an upfront emotional investment. You may need to act as if until the feeling follows. That's not inauthentic, it's training. Actors do it, leaders do it, high performers do it. They adopt a posture, tone, and rhythm that generates the internal state they need. Over time, the external behavior reshapes internal feeling. Before we close this first part, let's focus on one of Keller's most practical frameworks, the attitude ladder. Picture a ladder with rungs representing negative to positive response styles. At the bottom are blame and excuses. In the middle are neutral observation and analysis. Near the top are acceptance and positive action. Each day, choose to climb one rung. The ladder metaphor reminds you that change is stepwise. It's not about instantaneous transformation. It's about choosing the higher response in small moments. If you look at your life as a series of moments where you may choose upward or downward responses, you see the real power of Keller's approach. Each micro-choice is a vote for your future identity. Most people underestimate the cumulative power of tiny choices. They look for dramatic fixes when the real lever is mundane daily attention. By now you should see how attitude, language, action, and environment weave together. They're not separate tactics, but a single system. Clean the frame. Attitude. Feed the projector. Thought and visualization. Speak your intentions. Language. Move consistently. Action and habit. And design the stage, environment, and social circle. Do this day after day, and what appears to be a small change becomes a structural transformation. As we move deeper into the lessons of attitude is everything, we reach one of the book's most powerful truths. Your words are tools. They build pathways, shape beliefs, and set the direction of your energy. People underestimate this. They think words are just noise. But in reality, every phrase you repeat, whether out loud or inside your mind, becomes a blueprint, a set of instructions your subconscious follows faithfully. Jeff Keller explains this with absolute clarity. Words don't just describe your reality, they create it. If you keep saying, "I'm always unlucky," life will keep handing you situations that confirm your statement. If you say, "I'm resilient," your mind begins scanning for solutions instead of obstacles. The shift is subtle at first, almost too small to notice. But like a compass that's off by just 1 degree, over time your entire direction changes. It isn't difficult to see this principle in action. Notice the people around you. People who speak in possibilities tend to act boldly. People who speak in complaints tend to remain stuck. Words trigger emotion. Emotion drives behavior, and behavior builds results. This is why Keller insists we train ourselves to respond with positive words, even to the most casual question. How are you? It's a question we hear dozens of times a day. Most people answer automatically, fine, okay, tired. They don't realize they're reinforcing a state. They're not reporting reality, they're creating it. The story of Sally, the tired office worker, captures this perfectly. She said she was tired so often that she deepened her fatigue with every repetition. Her entire day dimmed because her language aligned her mind with sluggishness. Then, the moment she won the lottery, the moment her emotional state flipped, she suddenly had all the energy in the world. Nothing changed physically. What changed was her inner narrative. Imagine the power of choosing the narrative intentionally. Start saying, "You're energized, you're grateful, you're moving forward." Even if the words don't perfectly match your feelings at the moment, they invite your emotions to follow. Emotions follow attention. Attention follows language, and language is your tool. This brings us to another critical lesson. Associate with positive people. Your environment is not neutral. It's either lifting you or draining you. We absorb the tone, beliefs, and energy of the people around us just like sponges absorb water. If you spend your days surrounded by complainers, eventually you will complain. If you spend time with people who dream, plan, and take action, your standards rise to match theirs. Consider Smokey, the funeral home worker who spent 45 years around death, but still radiated positivity. Despite constant exposure to grief, he understood something most people never figure out. The dead never frightened him. The living, especially the negative ones, were the real threat to his mindset. So he filtered them out. He chose environments and relationships intentionally. He knew that success requires guardianship over your mental space. This is why Keller urges you to consciously curate your circle. You don't have to eliminate people cruelly or abruptly, but you must prioritize your emotional climate. Spend more time with the encouragers, the builders, the people whose eyes light up when they talk about goals. Their energy becomes fuel. Their hope becomes contagious. And equally important, limit the people who constantly drain you. The pessimists, the critics, the people who treat complaining as a hobby. These individuals rarely change, no matter how much you try to inspire them. If you stay too close for too long, you begin mirroring their patterns. The simple truth is this: your life expands or shrinks in proportion to the people you keep near. Next, Keller guides us into a territory most people avoid: fear. Fear is the great stall, the invisible wall, the voice that says, "Not yet," or "Maybe later," or "What if you fail?" Fear has stopped more dreams than lack of talent ever has. Most people misinterpret fear. They think it's a sign to step back, a warning to retreat. But Keller tells us something different. Fear appears when you're close to growth, when you're approaching a new identity. Fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal. It's your old self resisting transformation. When you run from fear, you shrink. When you face fear, you expand. The story of Dottie, the teacher who dreamed of performing, embodies this. She lived decades in the safe zone because fear whispered that her dream was too big, too late, too unrealistic. And she listened, until one day she got tired of listening. She took a risk. She resigned. But fear struck again, and she ran back to the comfort of her old job. But the dream didn't leave. It stayed, pressing against her heart like a stubborn flame. Eventually, she confronted her fear head-on. She stepped into the entertainment industry in her 50s, an age when most people are winding down, not starting over. She went on to perform, produce, and record music well into her 60s and beyond. Her message was simple: fear is loudest right before the breakthrough. Every time you step outside comfort, you evolve. And comfort zones don't expand unless you stretch them. This leads us to one of Keller's strongest teachings: get out there and fail. We're conditioned from childhood to avoid failure. We're taught it's shameful, embarrassing, something to hide. But in reality, failure is the builder of champions, the sculptor of skill, the architect of character. Look at the chicken soup for the soul story. A perfect example. Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen faced 140 rejections from publishers. Not one, not five, 140. Each rejection could have been their stopping point. Each one could have confirmed their doubts, but they kept going. They didn't treat rejection as a verdict, they treated it as a checkpoint. Their persistence led to one of the most successful book series in history. Millions of copies sold, countless lives changed, all because they embraced failure as part of the journey. If they had stopped at the 5th rejection, or the 30th, or the 100th, the world would never have known their work. This is one of the greatest lessons of the book. Rejection is not the end, it's the refinement. You're not being denied, you're being prepared. Now, let's move toward another cornerstone of Keller's philosophy. You are responsible for your attitude, and therefore responsible for the results that follow it. This responsibility is empowering, not burdensome. It means you're never stuck. You're never truly at the mercy of circumstances. You may not control everything that happens to you, but you control how you interpret it and how you respond. That means you always have leverage. Many people hand that power away without realizing it. They say things like, "I can't help how I feel. I had no choice. This is just how life is. This always happens to me." Every one of these sentences gives your control to something outside you. Keller teaches you to reclaim it. Switch the language to, "I choose my response. I decide what this experience means. I decide what to do next." Small linguistic shifts produce dramatic psychological shifts. And this is where Keller introduces one of the most practical mental tools, the attitude test. Picture a glass with water at the halfway point. Do you see it as half full or half empty? Most people think this is just a cliché question, but Keller explains why it matters. Your immediate response reveals your dominant mental orientation, expectation of gain or expectation of loss. People who tend toward half-empty unknowingly live in scarcity mode. They anticipate lack before abundance. But your attitude isn't fixed. You can teach yourself to shift. You can practice seeing the fullness. You can train yourself to find possibility in difficulty. Attitude is a skill, not a trait. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful yet least appreciated truths in the book. Your mind is a magnet. What you focus on expands. What you consistently think about, you attract. Not in a mystical sense, but in a psychological one. If you think about opportunities, you notice opportunities. If you think about problems, you notice problems. If you think about reasons you'll fail, your brain collects evidence to support that belief. If you think about reasons you'll succeed, Your brain gathers evidence for that instead. Keller uses the example of Jeff's real estate story to show how belief precedes action. Before he bought a single property, he pictured it. He mentally stepped into the role of a real estate investor long before he executed the first deal. That belief shifted his behavior. Instead of hesitating, he began exploring. Instead of worrying about everything that could go wrong, he focused on what could go right. That mindset shift unlocked the opportunities. This is how attitude activates action. Next, Keller emphasizes the importance of visualization, the mental movie technique. It's not magical, it's neurological. Whatever you rehearse in your mind becomes easier in real life. Olympic athletes do this before races. Speakers do this before stepping on stage. Thinkers do this before creating something new. Your brain can't distinguish vividly imagined practice from actual practice. That's why Hollywood actors rehearse scenes mentally over and over. Visualization pulls your future self into your present mind. If you want success, you must picture success. If you want confidence, you must picture yourself acting with confidence. If you want transformation, you must picture yourself transformed. You are the director of the mental movie that shapes your real world. Now let's talk about something deeply practical and deeply misunderstood: commitment. Commitment is not motivation. Motivation is emotional. Commitment is structural. Motivation rises and falls. Commitment remains steady. Motivation wakes you up excited. Commitment keeps you moving when excitement fades. Once you commit to a goal, something extraordinary happens. Obstacles that once seemed huge suddenly appear smaller. Your brain starts scanning for resources. The world begins presenting pathways that were invisible before. It's not magic. It's selective attention. Keller tells the story of Jerry Gladstone to illustrate this. Jerry wanted to work with Disney, and for years, he got rejected. Not once, not twice, for years. Most people would have walked away defeated. Jerry walked forward instead. His attitude was, "I will find a way, even if the way isn't visible yet." That kind of commitment gives you stamina most people will never experience. Persistence creates openings that talent alone cannot. And when Disney finally gave him conditions that seemed absurd, move to another state, open a store, prove himself from scratch, he did it. He made sacrifices his competitors weren't willing to make. That's why he succeeded. Commitment moves mountains because commitment keeps you climbing long after others quit. Attitude determines interpretation. Interpretation determines direction. Direction determines destiny. When you shift attitude, you shift the lens. When the lens changes, the world changes. Now that we've explored the foundations, your thoughts, your language, your circle, your fears, we move into the final piece of Keller's philosophy: action. Because without action, attitude remains only potential, like a lamp that's never switched on, or a seed that's never planted. Attitude creates the internal spark, but action turns that spark into fire. Keller calls this the principle of heaven helps those who act. It's one of the most important lessons in the entire book. Too many people believe they must wait for perfect clarity before taking the first step. They wait for the right moment, the right mood, the right opportunity. But here's the truth. Clarity is not the starting point. It's the reward. It arrives only after you begin moving. Even the smallest step triggers momentum. Even the tiniest movement forward reshapes your mindset. Action signals to your subconscious that you're serious, and your subconscious begins reorganizing your life to match your direction. This is why Keller insists on beginning wherever you are with whatever you have. He uses stories of ordinary people who transformed their lives simply because they refused to remain still. Think about anyone you admire: an athlete, an entrepreneur, a creator, a leader. None of them gained confidence first and then started. They started first, and confidence grew after. Every great success story is built on imperfect beginnings. Jeff Keller even admits that when he decided to become a motivational speaker, he had no idea how to start. He wasn't comfortable on stage. He didn't know where to get clients, how to craft workshops, or how to market his skills. But he took small steps anyway. He read books, attended seminars, volunteered to speak for free, practiced relentlessly, and stayed consistent. Over time, one small action led to another, and the path became clearer. Your journey will be the same. First action, then clarity, then momentum, and finally, transformation. This is why Keller ends the book with something all of us need to remember. Success is a daily decision, not a one-time epiphany, not a lucky break, not a burst of motivation. It's the consistent choice to adopt a positive attitude, to act courageously, and to keep moving forward no matter what tries to slow you down. But there's one more crucial layer to this philosophy, a layer people rarely talk about. Keller calls it the discipline of the environment. Your environment, physical, social, mental, determines your direction more than your intentions do. You can have the strongest desire for success, but if your environment contradicts your goals, it will pull you back like gravity. A cluttered room pulls you into mental chaos. A toxic social circle pulls you into drama and stagnation. A negative workplace pulls you into resentment. A hopeless conversation pulls you into helplessness. The environment wins unless you design it intentionally. This is why successful people reshape their surroundings. They remove the triggers that hold them back. They add the cues that push them forward. They fill their space with reminders of their goals. They study people who inspire them. They expose themselves to stories of resilience and growth. They guard their mental real estate. Your environment is either feeding you or draining you, nothing in between. Keller gives a powerful example of a young man who wanted to become healthier, but his kitchen was filled with junk food, and his friends were always inviting him to drink and stay up late. His intention was strong, but his environment was stronger. No matter how many times he tried to commit, he fell into the old patterns. Only when he replaced the junk with healthier options and reduced his time with certain friends did real change begin. Your life will mirror the environment you create. If you want positivity, create a positive environment. If you want growth, create a growth environment. If you want success, surround yourself with success. The next major idea Keller highlights is the importance of belief in the long game. Modern life tricks us into chasing instant results, quick wins, fast success, immediate validation. But real transformation rarely happens overnight. It happens in the shadows, in the invisible hours, in the quiet routines you repeat daily. Plant a seed today, and you won't see a tree tomorrow. But if you water it faithfully, something miraculous happens. It breaks the soil, reaches the sun, and grows beyond expectation. That's how positivity works. That's how attitude works. That's how success works. At first, the changes feel tiny, imperceptible, almost pointless. You may think, why bother? Nothing's happening. But beneath the surface, everything is happening. You're rewiring your brain. You're training your responses. You're building inner strength. Every positive thought is a seed. Every positive word is water. Every positive action is sunlight. And eventually, results appear so clearly that even the people who doubted you begin asking how you did it. This brings us to one of the final truths of the book. Your attitude determines what life hands back to you. Life reflects your energy. It mirrors your expectations. If you walk into a situation expecting problems, your mind scans for them. If you walk in expecting possibilities, your mind finds them. This isn't magic. It's perception. Two people can be in the same place, facing the same circumstances, with the same tools, and end up with completely different experiences. Why? Because their mindset filtered the world differently. One saw obstacles, the other saw openings. Keller uses the example of two salespeople. One complains that business is slow, customers are rude, and success is impossible. The other sees opportunities everywhere, new customers to meet, skills to improve, strategies to test. They operate with the same external conditions but radically different internal orientations. Attitude is the difference maker, the force multiplier, the internal engine of success. And here is where Keller offers one of the simplest yet most profound formulas for life. Think positively, speak positively, act positively, and results will follow. It sounds almost too simple, too obvious, but the truth is most people never apply even the first step consistently. They treat positivity like an accessory instead of a daily discipline. Jeff Keller urges you to treat it as a lifestyle, a way of thinking, behaving, and showing up in the world, a way of directing your focus toward growth instead of stagnation, a way of interpreting challenges as lessons instead of punishments, a way of building faith in your ability to shape your destiny. And finally, Keller leaves us with a powerful closing challenge, the real test. You've learned about mindset. You've learned about words. You've learned about visualization. You've learned about commitment. You've learned about fear. You've learned about action. But now comes the question that only you can answer. Will you apply it? Transformation begins only when knowledge turns into motion. Inspiration fades unless supported by discipline. And attitude, the heart of everything, must be strengthened daily. So Keller asks you to make a decision. Will you see the glass as half empty or half full? Will you walk toward your dreams or hide from them? Will you feed your strength or feed your fear? Will you shape your life or let it shape you? Your attitude answers these questions long before your words do. Because attitude is not just everything, it is the beginning of everything. Now, as we reach the end of this audiobook-style journey through Attitude is Everything, you've gained a lifetime of tools. Tools that have the power to reshape your mind, shift your experiences, and elevate your entire life. Use them, practice them, live them. Because when you master your attitude, you don't just change how you see the world, you change the world you see. If this summary inspired you, remember to share it with someone who's struggling, someone who needs hope, someone who needs a spark. Your words today might be the very thing that shifts their destiny. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for more life-changing book summaries that help you think stronger, act bolder, and live better. Thank you for spending your time with us here at MindBite Reads. Until next time, keep your attitude positive, keep your vision clear, and keep moving toward the life you were meant to live. Because with the right attitude, everything else becomes possible.